Today, I'm going to show you how to color an illustration in Photoshop. All right. Hey guys, and welcome to Phlearn. My name is Aaron Nace, and you can find me on Phlearn.com, where we make learning Photoshop and photography fun. And today's episode is super cool, guys. We're going to show you how to take an illustration, whether it's a line drawing you did on the computer or it's something you did by hand and scanned into the computer, and we're going to show you how to color it in a really unique way. We're going to start off by showing you how to make a selection out of your drawing. This is going to keep you drawing inside of the lines. Then we're going to show you how to isolate different areas of the illustration, coloring each of them differently. We're even going to show you a cool feature called transparency lock, which is going to allow us to add a ton of color variation to each of the areas of this illustration. And to finish today's episode off, I'm going to show you how to add a background and a shadow and even bring some of the color of the background into the pineapple. It's going to be so much fun. Let's get into today's episode. All right, guys, so here we are, starting off with our illustration of a pineapple. It's a really cool illustration, and we're going to make it a lot cooler by adding some color to it. So by default, I've got my background layer. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to figure out this line drawing. It's nice, but I want this to be like, I want to be able to color under the lines, right? I want the lines to be over top of everything. So how do we do that? Well, if I just create a new layer here, and let's say I want to put this under my background layer. Well, by default, it's not even going to let me do that, right? Because my background layer has this lock on it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to double click on this background layer. So let's double click there. It's going to just turn it into a regular layer, layer 0. And let's hit OK. And you're going to see this lock is going to go away. So OK, now our background's a totally normal layer. So now I can take this layer 1 and put it underneath there. Pretty cool. All right, let's say I want to color this pineapple. So we're going to choose a color that's going to be like pineapple colored. We'll figure this out later. And I want to go ahead and start painting. Well, I want to paint over here. So now we can see we've got this color here. Now our pineapple over top of it is completely opaque. We can't see through any of the pineapple. In other words, it's not doing what we want, right? It's not actually like putting the lines over top of the color. So what we're going to do is we're going to change our blending mode of the pineapple layer to multiply. And what that does, it makes all this white area totally invisible, and it just applies the dark area over top of whatever you paint. So let's click on our pineapple here. This is whatever line drawing you have. You want to make sure that the blending mode is changed to multiply. So we're going to change our blending mode from normal down to multiply. Okay, and there we go. It's as easy as that. So anything underneath this layer, like really anything I want, you know, I can just grab different colors, whatever it is, you can see it's showing up underneath the pineapple. So you're like, whoa, that's already like really awesome. That's a long way there, right? So now what we want to do is make sure we're coloring inside of the lines. So I'm going to select just the pineapple, and we're going to use that to create a layer mask. And that's going to define just the area that we can paint. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn our background layer invisible real quick. Now here on the layer with the pineapple on it, I'm going to go to my magic wand tool. We can hit W for our magic wand tool. And I'm going to make a selection outside of the pineapple. So you can see everything but the pineapple is now selected. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and group it with itself, because we got a couple different layers we're going to be working with here, and I want all the layers to exist in the same group. Okay, so we're going to click on our folder icon to group it with itself. And now you still see we have our selection active. I'm going to click on my layer mask button, and that's going to load a layer mask, basically defining where I can and cannot paint. Okay, now in this case, you're going to see my layer mask looks like this. I've got white on the background and black where my pineapple is. That's actually the inverse of what we want, because a layer mask, anywhere that's white, you're going to see. Anywhere that's black, you're not going to see. Okay, so all we have to do is click on our layer mask and hit Command I. There we go. That inverts our layer mask. Okay, so now we can see that our pineapple is visible. And if I put this layer inside of this same group, let's go ahead and bring this inside of the group with the pineapple. We'll bring this one in there as well. There we see anything that I paint on this layer here is going to be colored in the same way. It's only going to be visible inside of this group. Now, if I pull this outside of the group, okay, if I brought this down, there we go. We can see outside of the group, it still looks completely horrible. But if I put it inside of the group, there we go. Because the group has a layer mask, it's only going to be defined right there, which is really cool. All right, guys, those steps were really important. We learned how to take a line drawing and put it over top any color. And setting that to a multiply blend mode made sure that the lines are going to show up and anywhere that's white is going to be invisible. And then we learned how to make this into a selection so we can color just inside the lines. Now we're going to get into actually painting this pineapple. All right, so to paint this pineapple, we're going to do it in a couple different layers. Now I can go ahead and delete this layer with this purple on it, although I like the idea of a purple pineapple. I don't think we need it for today's episode. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and grab a nice like yellowish orange color. Now this can always be changed, but we're going to start off with something like this for our pineapple. And I'm just going to start painting right over here with my brush tool. There we go. Now we're going to zoom in, and I want to make sure to stop right before I get to these leaves, because the leaves we're going to take care on a different layer because they're going to be a different color. So my recommendation would be anything that's going to be a dramatic different color, like in this case the leaves are obviously going to be green and this is obviously going to be yellowish orange. Anytime you have such a shift in color, I would recommend creating a new layer. And that's going to be very obvious why I recommend doing that in just a second. All right, there we go. So we're going to go ahead and color all this area in. This is all the pineapple area here. All right, so that looks really good. Now let's create another layer under there, and we'll grab a nice green. So we'll go to our color. Let's go ahead and grab a nice green, something nice, and there we go, something like that. And I'm just going to start painting in here. Now keep in mind, I'm not trying to paint inside the lines because it really doesn't matter, right? Because the only area this is going to be visible at all is where the pineapple is, because all of these layers in this group, all of them, you can see they're all in the group, they're all subject to that layer mask, right? Which means that no matter what I do, I can't paint outside of the pineapple. So getting a really nice setup is really going to help out in image creation, because it just means you don't have to do any extra work. We're already got everything set up the right way, and now all we have to do is color wherever we want the color to be. All right, so we're almost done here. And we can see having these lines makes this a lot easier. Filling in color in Photoshop is really quite simple, actually. All right, there we go. Almost done here. All right, and if you color too much, just hit E for the eraser tool and erase it away. It's no big deal. If I did that, just hit E for the eraser tool and erase that layer away. All right. There we go. Okay, so that actually looks pretty good. Like if you were going for like just a totally stock illustration with no shading or color in it, I'd say you're done. But this is Phlearn, and we have higher standards for that. So we're going to show you how to use basically these same layers to create a lot more depth in this pineapple. All right, guys, so now it's time to add more depth to this pineapple. We're going to add some highlights and some shadows. It's going to make it look a lot more three-dimensional. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to Window and down here to Color. Okay, now this color palette is super nice because I can choose the color. Let's say I'm going to be working with this green, okay? So let's go ahead and click on our eyedropper color, just the eyedropper. Click on the eyedropper tool and select out this green. Okay, now with my brush tool, you can see because this green is selected, I could choose a darker green. Let's say I choose a darker green right here, and I wanted to paint some shadows. So with my brush tool, I'm going to say this leaf over here, I want that to be darker. There we go. That one over there, I want that one to be darker too. So let's go ahead and paint that on that one too. And this one down here, we want this to be darker as well. Now let's say we wanted some of these to be lighter. So I'm going to go up here to the top right, and we're going to start painting. That's a little too saturated, too much color. So we'll bring that over to the left. All right. And some of these we want to be a little bit lighter. Maybe you want to create like a couple highlights over here. There we go, on top of these leaves here. So basically what I'm doing here is just painting the difference between a highlight, and then on the right side of that leaf, I want that to be a shadow. So I'm going to paint right over there with that shadow color. Now, you'll do this a couple times, painting your highlights and shadows, And then eventually you don't have to pick all your colors over here. You can just pick them from what's actually going on inside of your image. Okay, so in this case, let's choose a leaf color. That looks pretty good there. Now let's say we want a highlight color. Instead of picking over here, you can actually just pick different areas inside your leaf. There we go. We can choose, this is going to be a highlight right there, and we'll go ahead and bring a shadow in there. You know what? That doesn't even look good. So we'll do a darker color and bring it over there to the right, and then the highlight here on the left. All right, we're all learning, including me. There we go. That looks pretty good. All right, so highlight color and then shadow color. So you can continue to choose your colors over here, or you can choose your colors directly from your actual image just by holding Alt or Option, which brings up your eyedropper tool. All right, there we go. So basically what I'm doing is painting shadows on the right sides of the leaves and anywhere that's underneath. There we go. So for instance, if my light source is coming from the left-hand side here, there should be a shadow right to the right of this leaf. So I'm going to click right down here, this nice dark color, and we're just going to create a nice shadow there. There we go. That looks pretty good. We'll create one there, and I'm just going to go through and anywhere I think should be, you know, a nice dark shadow, I'm going to go ahead and paint that shadow in. Now you can be super, like, I don't know what the word is. I want to say anal, but I guess, I don't know, word's got a lot of meaning to it these days. You can decide to paint inside of the lines or outside of the lines if you'd like to. The choice is totally up to you. I'm doing this live, right? So I'm doing like a pretty quick example. So in this case, I would say like I'm going a lot quicker than I normally would. But if you want to take your time, this is exactly what you would do. You just basically do what I'm doing, just take a little bit longer. All right. There we go. So the idea is put a shadow on where things should be darker. Nice dark shadow color there. And put a highlight where you think things should be a little bit lighter. And it's just going to start making sense, right? Like, oh, okay, cool. That should be a little bit brighter over there. So let's put a nice highlight over there. And in this case, we're painting with almost white. All right, there we go. We'll put a couple highlight colors over there. All right. Pretty cool. And we'll go a little bit darker over here in a couple areas. So you can see it really doesn't take too long, and we've added a ton of depth to these leaves. All right, so it went from totally flat, and now we've got this. We'll add a couple more highlights. All right. Cool. This looks great. All right, so now we've taken care of the leaves. Let's go ahead and take care of the underside. We'll go ahead and take care of this area. Okay, so let's click on this layer. I'm going to use my eyedropper tool again. So we'll go to our eyedropper tool right here and select the color for this layer. Okay, and now this time I'm going to choose my brush tool. I'm going to choose like a big, broad, soft brush because I want to create just like a shadow on this side of the pineapple. Okay, so brush, I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to size. We're going to bring that way up, and our hardness, we're going to bring that way down. Size even up a little bit higher. There we go. Cool. So now we're just going to choose right down here. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to start painting with a shadow color on the right side of this pineapple. If I want to go a little bit darker, there we go. We'll just paint a little bit more of a shadow. If I want to go a little bit lighter, a little bit more color, we'll do this here on the left. All right, and a little bit lighter, just like that. So this is really good. That's what I would call like a base. So we've got like our highlight here and our shadow here. Looks pretty round. All right, let's go ahead in here and start painting with a little bit more depth. So we're gonna bring our color up a little bit brighter. And now I'm gonna start painting like on the top of each one of these little guys, okay? This is like where the highlight should go. Upward facing areas. Basically anything that's like should be hitting the light. And you can see I'm using the same idea that I use with the leaves. Just grabbing a lighter color here and painting where the highlight should be. There we go. And you can spend a long time on this, or you can spend not a long time. I'm not going to get offended either way. It's just going to totally like dictate like, you know, how nice this actually looks. All right, there we go. Now let's grab some shadow colors and start painting on the underside of some of these things. Okay, so we'll start painting here on the bottom. All right, and if you do something that you don't like, it's not a big deal. Just grab another color and paint right over it. All right, that's looking good. Now this is an illustration, so I'm not trying to make this like super photorealistic. I just want to make sure that it's like good enough to where it actually looks like it's got some depth to it. There we go. And a nice dark color for over there. Cool. That's actually looking pretty good so far. So you can see, like, without like a crazy ton of effort, we're able to get a really nice result. All right, I'm gonna just bring in some nice bright spots. Oh, that's too saturated. Let's bring our color down just a little bit there on our pineapple. All right, that looks good. So I would say that's pretty good for like level 1. Basically, like this is like a really good first start to our color. Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take another layer and I'm gonna add even more color to this, and we're gonna even add other colors that are gonna help make the color a little bit more dynamic. All right guys, so to add some color variation, I'm gonna use a soft light layer. So let's go ahead and create a new layer. I'm gonna bring it above both. Here you can see, there's the top of my pineapple and the bottom. Okay, now we're gonna change our blend mode from normal to soft light. Now, whatever color I paint on this layer, let's just say I grab like a purple, okay? It's gonna add purple into the image, but it's gonna actually blend with whatever color's already there. So you can see it's not straight purple, right? It's like blending with whatever's going on there. And that's the soft light blend mode. So if I grab like a nice like orange color and I start painting this in, well, you can see like my pineapple starts to get some of this color into it. And it's a really nice, easy way to add some nice like color variation into a shape just like this. So we've got like a little bit of yellow and a little bit of red right there. It's like very quick and very easy, guys. Now let's do the same thing with the green. Add some green. You know what? I want some bright yellow on the top left, right? And then maybe like a little bit of a cooler green to the right. All right. And the best thing about this is it's totally 100% undoable. All I have to do is turn this layer off and back on. All right, and you can see just what a difference it makes in the image. All right, that looks pretty good actually. So let's go ahead and add, you know what, I want to add a little bit more color. There we go. I kind of like that red in the pineapple, like a little bit of red in there, like really kind of made that. All right, it brought it to life. There we go. Yeah. Cool. All right, that looks great. Okay, so now what we're ready to do, we've got our color variation, we've got like our base color here and our bottom color. Let's go ahead and add a background. Now a background is not gonna exist inside of this group, right? A background is gonna be underneath this group. So let's create a new layer. We're gonna go ahead and stick it under there. And then with our brush tool, I'm gonna grab like a really nice light blue and I'm gonna hold Alt or Option and hit delete. And that's just gonna fill with that nice blue. Okay, so now I wanna just kind of change this color a little bit because it's not exactly right. So we'll just go to our little bit lighter here, Alt or Option and hit delete. And there we go. That's looking pretty good there. Okay, so let's see what we've got so far. We've got a pineapple. It looks really great. We've got a pineapple. We've got the green leaves or whatever there are up top, and we've got a background. All right, guys, everything looks really great. The last step, we're just gonna add a couple little highlights and shadows that are really gonna bring this image to life. So to add our highlights, I'm just gonna create a new layer here inside of my pineapple group, and I'm just gonna choose a white brush. This is, my color is gonna be white here, and we're just gonna zoom in, and basically my idea is to create little white highlights. So we're gonna choose a nice small brush here, and we're gonna create little white highlights that are just gonna add a little bit more life to our image. All right, there we go. And you're gonna see in some areas it's gonna really make a difference. In some areas you're not gonna see it as much. All right, there we go. Kind of coming right down there. All right, beautiful. What this does is it just gives it a little bit more life. It makes it look like you know, some of these areas really do catch the light. All right, there we go. Maybe the edge there. Yep, that looks pretty good. It's amazing what like a couple little white highlights can do to an image, especially one like this. All right, let's do the same thing. Cover that tip white. Let's do the same thing down here. We're just gonna choose some of these areas. I'm gonna choose on the top left here, basically any of these areas that would be directly hitting the light. So we're painting on the left side because we decided early on that our light source is going to be coming from the left. All right, so all these little white highlights really help to add a lot more definition to this pineapple. All right. So again, I'm doing this, you know, live. You guys can see me do it right now. If you were doing this, you know, I would recommend spending a little bit more time on this, obviously, if you're doing this for a client or whatever. All right, so we added our highlights. Those are looking really good over to the left side of all this. Now we're gonna do shadows. We're gonna create a new layer, and this time I'm gonna paint with like a really dark gray, but we don't want this gray color to show up like that, right? I actually want it to blend in with the color of the pineapple. So instead of like with white, we didn't change the blending mode, but with this dark color, I am gonna change the blending mode from normal to soft light. Oh, you know what? That doesn't look that good. Let's go to multiply. There we go. Multiply looks a little bit better. This color is actually blending in with the colors below it. So there's what it looks like normal. You can see there's no color in there. Multiply, bring some of the yellow in there. All right. So now with this gray color, I'm just gonna go in here and do the same thing that I did with the highlights. This time, I'm gonna do it with the shadows. All right, so we'll color a couple nice dark shadows here. There we go. Looking pretty good. And all this stuff is just made to add a little bit more depth to, there we go, just a little bit more depth to our image. All right. Beautiful. All right, and if it's too dark, just bring this color a little bit lighter. There we go. And now you can see it's not too dark. All right, let's do the same thing here. Again, that looks a little too dark. Let's just bring it a little bit lighter. All right, there we go. And now we're ready to start painting in all these little shadow areas. So just these like key little detail areas, really gonna make a nice difference when it comes to the overall read of the image. It's just gonna look a lot more three-dimensional. All right, so you can see I painted on the left side of these highlights right there, and now on the right side, I'm painting shadows. And that's just gonna help it give it a lot more depth. All right. You could spend all day doing this if you wanted, but I'm not going to. I've got other things that I want to do with my day, like make other Photoshop tutorials, because that's the only thing I do because I love it. It's not the only thing I do. Sometimes I make other tutorials. All right, there we go. Cool, so we can see just a little bit of highlight and shadow information really does change how an image reads, and it adds a lot more depth and dimension to your image. All right, especially here in the shadows. We want to add more shadows on the right side because this is a shadow area, and there were more highlights on the left side because that was a highlight area. All right, beautiful. Cool. All right, let's look what it sees. Let's look what it sees. That doesn't make any sense. Let's see what it looks like before and after with those. So let's turn those off. We can see it's a little bit more flat, and then back on with a little bit of highlight information, and it looks really, really good. All right, let's go ahead and group all these together. We're gonna show you guys a before and an after. All right, everyone, here's our before and our after. And that's all there is to coloring and illustration in Photoshop. Guys, in today's episode, we covered a ton, but you can totally do this on your own. Just follow these key steps. First, create a selection around the area you actually want to color. Then turn that into a layer mask, which is gonna allow you to just paint inside the lines. Next, we wanna create different layers for each different color. For the top leaves, we created one layer and painted it green. For the bottom, we created another layer and painted it orange. Next, it's time to add a little bit more detail. I recommend pulling up the color palette. It's gonna easily allow you to select highlights and shadows of the same color, giving you a lot more options. And to finish the illustration, we added white highlights and dark shadows, which really helped to give the form a little bit more shape. And that's all there is to it. So now it's your turn to take your illustration and color it in Photoshop. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. This was a super fun episode. I hope you enjoyed watching it. If you like what we're doing here at Phlearn and you want to learn more Photoshop and photography for free, just hit that subscribe button on your screen now, and we'll send you free Photoshop and photography episodes every single week. And if you have an idea or a question about today's episode, please leave it in a comment right down below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much, guys. I'll Phlearn you later. Bye, everyone. All right, so here's the deal. Color. All right, cool. All right, guys, so here's the deal with color. All right, guys, so here's the deal. Cool. All right, guys, so here's the deal with coloring an area. All right, cool. All right, so here's the idea with coloring an area. All right, so we're about to add a lot more depth to this image. Cool. All right, guys, we're We're good. Blah. Whew. Did it. Man. Yeah, it was like a pro tutorial. That was a lot.